Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs, the bluest of blues, we're talking about here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, after watching last night's Thursday night football game, Colts at Broncos, and just seeing Russell Wilson over the first 5 weeks of the season and that Broncos offense in particular and the struggles that they've gone through, watching Matt Ryan in the same game, another quarterback that has changed teams, that has been, in a system, been comfortable, had to, change teams, new playbook, new surrounding cast of characters, and players and all of that stuff, having to acclimate. And look, Matt Ryan has been on the downturn of his career for the last 2 or 3 years already. Anyway, but that notwithstanding, it's a trend around the league right now that quarterbacks that have changed teams in the offseason have struggled. And Ron Rivera talked today with the media, and I like these Friday press conferences that he does with the media. It seems very personal. It seems intimate. He's not standing up at the podium. It's not a lot of noise. There aren't a lot of people that get invited to these. It sounds like maybe 5 or 6 people: Nikki Javala, John Kine, Ben Standig. Just the beat writers that they trust to have in the building at that, particular juncture. And so it's not a lot of people. It's not the Channel 7 or Channel 4 or whatever. I don't think they have all those people there. The Scott Abrahams and all of those. I think they narrow it down to about 5 or 6 reporters that they trust. And Ron just chops it up with them for about a good 10 to 15 minutes. So in that discussion today, and we'll talk more about it when we get to in other news, one of the things that was brought up was, Tom Brady's comment, and I talked about this on the show yesterday, and I'm probably going to talk about it on the podcast, but, the lack of good play around the league. He thinks that the parity that we're seeing isn't actually parity, it's just bad football. And I think he is on to something there. It is a bit of parity, but I think it's also bad football. And I think some of that stems from, and I like to get on my soapbox, but I think it stems from the lack of preparation in the preseason. Teams aren't taking the preseason seriously, and so I think it bleeds into the first month of the season when teams they're using September essentially as the preseason, and you're still trying to figure shit out instead of figuring some of these things out in the preseason and ironing out some of these wrinkles. But that's nor here nor there. That's another discussion for another day. He talked about the struggles of the quarterbacks last night. He didn't get into that, but he did mention something that I forgot about, and that was Tom Brady's struggles with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his first year in Tampa. Like, we so quickly forget that wasn't a clean and seamless transition from New England to Tampa Bay. They struggled up until their bye week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were uneven, and nobody thought they were going to win the Super Bowl. They didn't even win their own division. They got embarrassed by the New Orleans Saints on a Sunday night. They were a mess at times. They had that game against the Bears on a Thursday night where Brady was holding up 4 fingers thinking he had another down, and they had just lost the football game. So there's been a number of different instances where quarterbacks have changed teams, and it has taken a while. And again, we tend to do this because nobody cares about what anybody else is doing or what the norm is. This is the situation here, and we need you to play well. And in this particular situation with Carson Wentz, we knew what the narrative was when he got here. We knew what everyone was saying. And so we already knew what was to be expected from the outside. And what the public perception was of Carson Wentz going to Washington. This is never going to work. He sucks. They're going to find that out the hard way. And I think you've got a lot of fans that have bought into that narrative. And look, he may ultimately suck. That may come to fruition. And everybody that said he was going to suck and you're going to see may ultimately be right. But I think what needs to be done is we need to give Carson Wentz more grace and mercy than we've shown him to this point. One, because the offensive line has been a mess, and I think it's starting to get cleaned up, and I think we'll see that this offensive line will be better in week 5 and hopefully moving forward. Again, we'll see. They may have their weeks where they just struggle, but I think this is one of the weeks where they start to turn things around. I think they're starting to go in the right direction as to who they're putting on the field. And the last piece to the puzzle may be Tyler Larson being inserted at center, and that may happen down the road. We'll see. But watching watching this season unfold with Russell Wilson, with Matt Ryan, with all of these quarterbacks that have changed teams that are struggling mightily. Okay, Mitchell Trubisky's already been benched in Pittsburgh. Not to say that he was good anyway, but you get my drift. You understand where I'm coming from. Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl, and this is the thing that we constantly do. We forget about all the bad. We go straight to the good because ultimately they got the job done. But keep in mind, Matthew Stafford led the league in interceptions last year. He was tied with Trevor Lawrence. He threw 17 picks last year. It was not all cookies and ice cream and cupcakes and all of that stuff, right? It wasn't all pleasant for Matthew Stafford. There were some bumps in the road last year in his first year out of Detroit and in a new system and with a new supporting cast. And the adjustment wasn't easy and it wasn't overnight. It took time. And you're seeing that again this year with all the guys that have changed teams. It takes time. Baker Mayfield is on the verge of getting benched and look, again, he's not good, but he's on the verge of getting benched in Carolina. It's not easy to just jump ship, go to a new team, pick up a playbook, and just seamlessly transition. It's not easy. So I think Carson Wentz deserves a little bit more grace and mercy than we've given him to this point. Obviously, the situation dictates that we need him to play better and we need him to play better now. And so not a lot of people want to hear that. No one wants to hear, hey, give him more time. When you're sitting at 1-3 and you're trying to have a season and you're struggling offensively and you're not being consistent, you're not scoring points, and he's looked bad, right? Russell Wilson looked bad. Matt Ryan looked bad. Baker Mayfield has looked bad. Mitchell Trubisky has looked bad. All these quarterbacks that have changed teams have looked bad. Matthew Stafford last year at times looked bad. Tom Brady in that first year in Tampa Bay at times looked bad. But we forget because Tom Brady won the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl. All right. And who knows what happens with Denver. Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos may win the Super Bowl this year. Highly unlikely, but it could happen. Stranger things have happened. And I've already told you, this shit is wide open. What looks like an abject disaster and epic fail today could be tomorrow's success story, which is why I've not given up on the season yet. Because anything could happen with the way the season has unfolded to this point. But I said all of that to say this. Carson Wentz is in a new system, and Ron keeps saying it over and over again, and he's right. Even though you're like, okay, Ron, you've said it a million times, we get it. But he's right. Carson's been in the same system, essentially, same verbiage. From Philadelphia, transitioned seamlessly to Indianapolis. Remember, he didn't even play in a preseason in Indianapolis. He was hurt. So he had to try to bust his ass to make it back for week 1. It wasn't that big of a deal for him because he already knew the offensive scheme. Could you imagine had he not had preseason work here in Washington? It would have been a disaster. We wouldn't have gotten the week 1 result that we got. And that's the only win we have to our name right now. So I think more time needs to be given as he continues to acclimate himself. A lot of people are making a big deal out of him not being able to audible. Hell, I just want him to get comfortable with the plays that are being called. I said this yesterday. It's tough making this transition. Because none of us have actually experienced it, you have no idea what that's like. But the best thing I could probably tell you is try going from your entire school life all the way up until the 8th grade, from K to 8. You've taken no foreign languages, and then in the 9th grade, they throw you in a Spanish class, and they expect you to get, an A right away, and your teacher wants you to speak in Spanish, and she's not giving you a ton of time to learn how to conjugate verbs and all of that stuff. She expects you to jump in and be ready. After a month of being in that class, all right, I need you to speak in Spanish. I need you to conjugate verbs. I need you to be very fluent in Spanish. That's essentially what we're asking Carson Wentz to do, is after, 6 months of being in an offensive scheme with OTAs and things of that nature, but not actually on the job training. He's only gotten a month and a half of that via the preseason and now the first month of the regular season. He's only had a month and a half of real on-the-job training. So after a month and a half of being in Spanish class, you're just learning the alphabet, you're learning the numbers, you're learning some words, how to put together sentences. Now I need you to speak fluently in Spanish. Well, I just got here. I'm still learning. No, 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 no. Figure it out. That's essentially what we are asking Carson Wentz to do. It's tough, especially when you start throwing in things like the teacher has been absent for the last 2 weeks and it's been a sub and the sub doesn't speak a lick of Spanish. She's just here giving you busy work, but not actually helping you learn how to speak the language. That's essentially what has happened the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks with the offensive line. So it's tough, right? It's tough. But he has to play better. You know, when you get things like Russell Wilson, that last play of the game, that's an easy read. You got to make the play. You got good protection on that play. No excuses. Make the flow. You know, make the throw, make the play. Same thing can be said for Carson at times. You get good protection. You got an open receiver. Make the throw. Make the play. So, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there as we move on to in other news. Ron Rivera spoke today with the media, as I mentioned, and he said a lot of things. There's a lot to glean from what he said. There were a lot of important things that he said. There were a couple of interesting things, but a lot of what he said today was important. So we'll get to that in a second. But before we do that, let's take a look at the injury report, the final one of the week as we head into week number 5 versus the Tennessee Titans. And we'll go through this real quick. Percy Butler is out for the game on Sunday. Hadn't practiced all week, and he's going to be out with a quad injury. Sam Cosmi, we already knew he was going to miss this game with the thumb injury. He's had surgery. He's going to miss the next 2 to 3 games. And so I think they haven't put him on IR because they want to see how he responds after everything, you know, dust settles, smoke clears. See if he can be back before the mandatory 4 weeks that he will have to miss if he's placed on IR. So they're kind of holding out hope maybe that he'll be back in maybe 3 weeks instead of 5 weeks from now. We'll see. Jahan Dotson, we knew he wasn't going to play in this game with the hamstring injury. I don't think he's going to play next week either. I think I told you the next time I think we see Jahan Dotson is Green Bay. And it to me, it makes sense because had this been a normal, Sunday, then the next game is the next Sunday, he might have been able to play. But because it's Sunday, then Thursday, I think it just doesn't make any sense to rush him back. Give him that full, 3 weeks to rest up, and then we'll see him against Green Bay. We can't afford to be yo-yoing him back and forth in the lineup because we want to rush him back. He needs to fully heal because he's such a big part of this offense. Milo Eifler also out with a hamstring injury. Will not play in this game. Ron talked about promoting and from the practice squad one of our old friends, Khalid Hudson. So he will take Milo Eifler's place in the game from a special team standpoint. Curtis Samuel back at practice today. Had the flu the last 2 days. Feeling better. Still a little weak. Still kind of working his way back. You know how it is. We've all had the flu before in our lives, so we know how that goes. And so he's going to play. Ron said that they're going to go ahead and monitor him in terms of his fluid intake, also get him the proper nutrition to get him back up to speed and feeling better. But he was at practice today, looked good. He's going to play on Sunday. That's great news. I was thinking it was going to go that way, but you never can be sure with these things. And so that's good to hear. Glad he's feeling a lot better. Charles Leno Jr. going to play. Now, I already told you that wasn't a big deal. David Mayo is questionable with a hamstring, so that's something to keep an eye on. And a new entry to the injury report today was Logan Thomas. Tight end Logan Thomas is right now questionable with, I believe, I want to say like a quad or ankle or something. I think it's a lower extremity injury. Either way, again, something to keep an eye on. Because of that injury, Ron also said that for the first time this season, we're going to get a look at rookie tight end Cole Turner. A lot of you have been asking about Cole Turner and when are we going to see this guy? Why is he not active? Is he still hurt? No, he's been healthy since week 1. He could have gone week 1. They wanted to give him more time. So the week 2 is when we thought we would see him. Remember, I made a big deal out of, okay, we're going to see Cole Turner in week 2 versus the Lions, and then he was inactive, and he hasn't been active since. They really fell in love with Amani Rodgers and what he was bringing to the table from a special team standpoint. But now with the injury to Logan Thomas, they need a little bit more reinforcement at the tight end position just in case Logan is compromised in any way. So Cole Turner is going to make his NFL debut now. He may not see the field offensively for a single snap. We don't know, but he will be active, and that's something that we haven't seen to this point, 4 weeks into the season. So that's some, news there as well. William Jackson III, Daniel Wise, both full participants. They're not even on the injury report any longer. They're going to play in the game, which is great news. Haven't seen Daniel Wise since about week number 2. You go to the Tennessee Titans, and they had a bunch of guys that didn't practice this week, and it held true to form, similar to our guys that were DMPs for the most part this week that aren't playing. Same thing could be said for the Titans. Ola Adeniji not playing with the neck injury. Treylon Burks, we knew he was going to be out anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks with the turf toe, so he's not playing. Zach Cunningham with the elbow, linebacker, not playing in this game. Bud Dupree asked MJ, was he going to play? And he thought, yeah, he's going to play. No, he's not going to play. He's out of this game with the hip. So I told you, the pass rush for the Titans has been compromised. They've still got guys, Tierre Tart and Big Jeff Simmons and Danico Autry. They still have guys that can make life hell for us up front if we don't protect. But they lost another one of their edge rushers here in Bud Dupree, not going to play in the game. Joe Jones, knee injury, not going to play. Amani Hooker, safety, a really big piece in that secondary, also out of this game with a concussion. So they're missing quite a few guys. So are we. I feel like it's kind of evenly matched in that regard. They're missing a couple of big-time players. So are we. We're missing our rookie receiver. They're missing their rookie receiver. So it makes it, again, I think it's kind of even on both sides in any event. Moving right along, Ron talked about a number of things. I've talked about some of the injuries, and he shed light on a lot of that. But he talked about, where this team is. And he talked about, I thought the questions that were asked of Ron were really pertinent questions. They were good questions. And, when you get in that setting, when it's kind of intimate, you're a little bit more open with your answers. And Ron talked about, some of the past seasons and the success that they've had. One of the catalysts in 2020 was the emergence of Alex Smith, kind of just coming in and stabilizing the quarterback position. Then we got on that run. Then he got hurt at the end of that win streak in San Francisco. He got hurt against Pittsburgh. He tried to go against San Francisco. He couldn't. We barely hung on because the defense put up a Herculean effort against San Francisco. And then obviously Dwayne took over from there, and we lost against Seattle, Carolina, and then Taylor Heineke was able to Alex came back against the Eagles. We won, and then Heineke started the playoff game. So Alex Smith was the catalyst in 2020. The run game was the catalyst in 2021 when we went on the win streak. And so he was asked, well, what do you think is going to be the catalyst this year? What's going to be the spark that turns the season around and gets you going? And he really didn't have an answer, which you can't. You don't know what it's going to be. But he feels good about what they've done. And he said, I know a lot of people think I'm crazy when I say we're close. But if you're watching the film, and I've told you this already, when I watch the film, I feel totally different than I did immediately after the game, because you see that they are close. And I pointed this out on the film. And anybody that's watched the film that I provided for you, and if you've watched it on your own, you'll see that we're close. It's little stupid mistakes that we keep making, and eventually, if they can clean those things up, these aren't mistakes that are uncorrectable, that are unfixable. These are all correctable mistakes. These are all fixable issues. They're just attention to detail, right? And so when you watch it, you're like, man, if they would have just protected a little bit longer, if this guy would have stayed on this block just a tad bit longer, if this guy would have gotten to this defender on this screenplay, oh my God, look at all the space that's here, So when you see these things, you get excited and you think of the possibilities, like, hey, they're not that far off. It's one thing if this team were just god-awful in every single, like if we looked like how we did against Detroit in the first half of that game for the entire season thus far, there's no hope. We couldn't tackle. We couldn't cover, on special teams, on defense. We couldn't stop the run. We couldn't do anything. We're stopping the run right now. All right. Our pass defense is not terrible. Our third down defense is still extraordinary this season. Like, there are building blocks here. I've been talking about these things all season. The problem hasn't really resided with the defense the last couple of weeks in particular. And even in some of the games earlier this season, sans for Detroit, the defense has given us a chance. I know you don't want to hear that against Philadelphia. The Eagles scored 24 points. The Eagles scored 24 points in one quarter. One quarter. And there were circumstances that helped them score those points. But the defense gave us a chance in that game. The game is not over when a team scores 24 in this league, just so you know. The game is not over when a team scores 22 in this league. They were horrible against Detroit. They gave up 36 points. You're not going to win many games giving up 36 points. Period. End of discussion. But when you give up 25, when you give up 24, and again, you'd like that number to come down, but that's a number you can win with. You should be able to score 27. Now, in today's NFL, this particular season, there's not a lot of points being scored. There aren't. If you score 30 plus points, that's an offensive outburst with what we've seen from teams this season. A lot of scores ending in the teens, a lot of teams barely making it to 20. You know, we've seen a lot of 23 to 20s. A lot of 26 to 16s. We've seen 11 to 10. We saw 12 to 9 last night. I mean, we've seen some nonsense this season. So all I'm saying is this defense is giving us a chance. And I don't think you give up 24 to Philadelphia if the offense isn't just repeatedly giving the ball back to Philadelphia's offense in the second quarter. Because as you saw in the first quarter, we actually moved the football and then we punted. So the defense wasn't constantly on the field. The Eagles didn't score a single point in the first quarter. The second quarter was disastrous. We couldn't move the football. We didn't sustain any offense. We kept giving it back to the Eagles and they kept scoring. After, by which I may add, we turned it over deep in our own territory to allow them to score their first touchdown. That's when they got the ball rolling. But in the second half, we went to the short passing game. It was trash. But it sustained offense and it kept the defense off the field. And voila, what do you know? The Eagles don't score a single point in the second half. Same thing could be said in the Dallas game. If the offense would have been able to be more consistent, and it's a shame because the defense gave and the special teams gave the offense great field position, something that we're not accustomed to. They had great field position in that game against Dallas for much of that game, and they wasted it. They squandered it. So, you know, Ron is like, we're close. I know you don't want to hear that, but we're close. He's not wrong, but at the end of the day, fans don't want to hear that shit. They don't want to hear the lip service. They don't want to hear that we're close. That's the shit that Bruce Allen used to say. Like, that's a trigger word for us. Close? Close? You were down 24 to nothing and 22 to nothing at halftime to the Lions and the Eagles, respectively. Close? We scored 10 points against Dallas? Close? It sounds crazy, I know. But this isn't the same Bruce Allen close. This is legitimately like, hey, I told you guys in 2020, when I watched the film, I said, guys, we're close. I'm telling you. You watch the film and it's just this here, it's this there. And then what happened? We went on a 4-game win streak. I'm telling you the same thing I told you in 2020. We're close. I didn't feel that way last year. I didn't see the 4-game win streak coming last year. That came out of nowhere. I didn't expect us to beat Tampa Bay after the bye week. I didn't expect us to beat the Raiders in Vegas. I didn't expect us to beat Seattle on a Monday night. Well, I did expect us to beat Seattle on a Monday night. But I didn't see that 4-game win streak coming last year. That came out of nowhere. But in 2020, it reminds me of this year where you're close. You're making little subtle mistakes that are killing you. You correct those and you got a chance. So I think this is the week where, and Ron said, you know, one of the biggest differences with this team, and he sees it, is that this team doesn't have any quit in them. They're going to continue to fight. And he's like, what he wants to see someone do, and he's like, the thing we're missing right now is consistency. Consistency. We see flashes here and there, but we need consistency. He said, I want these guys to go out and make plays and go out and take games. And instead of saying, here we go again, somebody say, all right, guys, let's go. Let's get it done. And I'm waiting for it. I thought we were getting flashes of that last week with the picks that we saw the defense get. Like, the defense took it upon themselves. All right, the offense ain't trying to do it. We're going to probably have to do it ourselves. The defense took a step in that direction last week. Let's see if they can't take another step and actually have those interceptions, fumbles, things of that nature, have them actually count. Actually turn that into scoring opportunities for the offense. We'll see. Earlier in the game, not when you're out of it and you get in the field goal range and you can't attempt a field goal because it doesn't make sense mathematically because of the time and the score at that juncture of the game. Have it happen earlier where if you don't get in the end zone, a field goal is just fine. And he talked about Sadiq Charles and he said, the biggest thing that has been keeping Sadiq Charles on the sidelines is health. Again, he's not wrong. We've all seen it. Sadiq Charles' issue has been not being able to stay healthy. Hopefully, knock on a little bit of wood, this is the time where he stays healthy, he puts it together, and shows why we drafted him as I think a third-round pick back in 2020. It's time for him to show and prove. I'm ready to see it. All right, let's go ahead and get to the game plan. All right, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I don't need to, overdo it here. I'm not going to give you a whole long list of things that need to be done. I think this one is pretty cut and dry. All right. For me, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Leave it down in the comment section. Scoring more, you know what it is. For me, on defense, first things first. Got to stop Derrick Henry. You don't do that, you're not going to win the football game. It's really simple. I mean, Ryan Tannehill is a solid NFL quarterback. He can hurt you if you allow the run game to get off and he goes play action fake. He can hurt you. He can hurt you with his legs if you allow that to enter into the game as well. Ryan Tannehill isn't trash, but he's not a game changer. He's not a guy that can take over a ball game and beat you with his right arm by himself. He needs the run game. The Titans need the run game like we need air to breathe. If Derrick Henry is held under, if we do to Derrick Henry what we've done to the last two opponents in the run game, we're going to win this football game. If we do not turn it over, which is the next key to the game. Don't turn the football over, man. How about we win the turnover battle for a change? Golly. Can we be clean in the game? We haven't done it yet this season. Can we be, I was begging for turnovers, and I'm still begging for turnovers. But you know what? More than having turnovers, how about we just don't turn it over? Let's start with that. How about we just don't turn the ball over ourselves? It'd be nice to win the turnover battle, but you know what? I will take a 0 in the column of turnovers for Washington this week. Let me just go with that. Just don't turn it over yourselves. Don't fumble. Don't throw any interceptions. I don't care if it's right before halftime. Don't turn the football over. Don't turn it over. It'd be nice to get a turnover too. That is not required in this particular game. You do not have to force turnovers. It would be nice to force some turnovers or a turnover. Let's start with one. But guess what? That is not necessary in this game. If you stop Derrick Henry and you don't turn it over, you're going to have a great chance to win this football game. Another key, obviously, have to protect the quarterback. Big Jeff Simmons is a beast. Period. End of discussion. Danico Autry is really good in his own right. Please protect up front. If you have to double team Jeffrey Simmons, by all means, knock yourself out. Do whatever is necessary to stop him from wrecking this particular game. He is a beast in the middle of that defense. Do whatever is necessary. But in this game, we have to block and protect for Carson. We have to run the football. I think Brian Robinson is going to play. Ron said this. This is another thing that Ron said, that he had a great week of practice. He's responded well. If he comes in on Saturday and he feels good again, he's going to be active on Saturday or Sunday. Same with Tyler Larson. They said he looked good this week as well. Both of those guys will be activated and active on Sunday. I was thinking Brian Robinson would more likely be active on Thursday, but they're anxious to get their hands on him and put him into this game plan. So I could see Brian Robinson playing in this game, gang. I can see him playing in this game. So look out for that. We'll hear from probably one of the beat writers, and they'll keep us abreast of that situation. But the likelihood is Brian Robinson's playing this week. That's what it looks like to me. That's what it sounds like to me. We'll see. But again, whether he plays or he doesn't, we got to run the football, can't beat ourselves with penalties, and we can't turn it over. Opportunities present themselves to make some plays in the secondary. The Titans have had trouble, with some big plays. They gave up a big run to Saquon Barkley. They've given up some big plays to the Buffalo Bills. We all watched that game and that massacre on that Monday night. Big play galore in that ball game. Guys running wide open down the football field. They've given up some plays this season. The Raiders had some big plays. I told you that the receiver, Mac Hollins, 8 catches, 160 yards. Mac Hollins had a field day. You can make some plays on this Titans defense. But one thing that MJ said that stuck with me, that scares me to death, is he said Mike Vrabel, and this is why Mike Vrabel hasn't had a losing season in his career as a head coach yet. He said Mike Vrabel last year out-schemed coaches and won football games strictly off of just out-executing other coaching staffs last season. He put his team in positions to win football games, didn't make any mental mistakes. Those guys were put in positions to succeed. And when he had to make certain calls in the game, whether to go for it on fourth down, whether to punt the football, whether to throw the challenge flag, whatever the case may be, whether to take away somebody's best target like a Bill Belichick, disciple would, he did those things and they won football games that people didn't think they would win. That scares me because right now, the thing that we doubt the most with this team is the coaching staff. And if you tell me that the guy on the opposite sideline is diabolical in nature and capable of out-scheming us, that scares me to death. But right now, offensively, what are you scheming against? We don't have shit. We haven't done shit the last 3 weeks. So what are you actually scheming to stop other than the run game? I don't know. But that does give me a bit of pause. But at the end of the day, it's really simple. Stop Derrick Henry. Don't turn the football over. Run the football effectively. Stay ahead of the down and distance and ahead of the sticks. All right. Pick up first downs. Get off the field on third downs. Stop first and second down runs. Don't give up big plays. Right. Don't give up big plays over the top. Explosives. We kind of cut those back last week. We're trending in the right direction. Continue down that path. Limit the big plays. They don't have a big play receiver on their team, so we shouldn't be giving up big plays over the top. We said the same thing about Robert Woods when he was with the Rams, and he scored a 58-yard touchdown against us with no one around him. Don't let Robert Woods have a big day because he's the only receiver that they have right now that's a threat. Don't let their tight ends get off. Stop Derrick Henry, neutralize their offense, and get off the field. Protect the football. I want to turn over, but you know what? Don't turn it over. Let's start there. Let's have a clean game for once. You get to the final outcome. This is a game I've been telling you all week that I like us in. I think we've got a shot here. I think we're trending in the right direction defensively. We're stopping the run. This just our luck. This would be the game where we revert back to weeks 1 and 2 where we struggled to stop the run. But Cam Curl, since his return to the lineup, we've been rock solid against the run. I don't see that changing. I like this game for us. I could even see us keeping the Titans under 20 points and winning this game something like 20-16, 23, 22, 23-16. I could see that happening with the, lack of weapons that they have. But I could also see the Titans finding a way, because I talked about their coach scheming it up and figuring a way out. I could see them finding a way to score 20 points. And that's going to put pressure on us because we haven't scored 20 points since week 2. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on us. If they can get to the 20s, that's tough for a team that's been struggling to score the last 2 weeks. But I like us in this football game. I like our chances. I like the return of Brian Robinson, if that in fact does happen. I like Antonio Gibson as a weapon and being able to move around now that he's not somewhat, fixed in the backfield as a running back. I like this opportunity for Washington. I like this situation. I like a Titans team right before the bye week. They're kind of looking towards the bye, probably overlooking us. I like this opportunity that's being presented in front of us. They got a ton of injuries. They're just trying to get to the bye week. It feels like New Orleans last year, and that didn't turn out well for us. But I like our chances in this game. Hopefully we learned something from that game last year, and we'll take care of business this year. I said this is a big game. If you want to turn your season around, now's the time to make something of this season. You're 1-3. You got this game. You got a quick turnaround against Chicago. You got an opportunity to win 2 straight, right the ship, and get back into this thing. It needs to start Sunday. Give me Washington 22-20. How do we get to 22? Your old boy, your old friend, all right, Joey Sly misses an extra point. You start getting scared and nervous. The Titans have an opportunity late, but we hold on and win this thing 22-20. So, scoring more, leave it down in the comment section. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Looking forward to chopping it up with you and watching the game with the mob. And then afterwards, hopefully at 4:17 on Sunday afternoon, we're talking about the Titans and both the Washington Commanders being 2-3. We'll be wearing our, what they like to call our legacy burgundy jerseys. So the first time we'll see the burgundy jerseys with the white pants and the burgundy helmets. So we'll be wearing our legacy burgundy jerseys. Hopefully they bring us some legacy luck. I'll see you guys on Sunday. Enjoy the weekend. Fellas, you know what to do. Get the dub.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The